2024. Welcome to EDU Endpoint Office Hours. I'm your host, Gary Chandler, joined with Richard Balsley, the one and only super smart guy here. Today's topic specifically is going to be Copilot for security, specifically within Intune. So we have our good friend Ravi from the product group joining us today to talk about that. So that's going to be a great discussion. But before we get to that, happy Build Week. It is Build 2024 this week, and we had our big keynotes this morning. So if you haven't caught up on all of that, lots of good AI announcements, just AI goodness all around. Specifically, and I don't have a slide for this, but I do want to call out specific to the education crowd. We actually partnered with Khan Academy. And if you're familiar with Khan Academy, they have a solution, an AI solution that's built on Azure called Conmigo, which is kind of a play on words of conmigo, like Spanish, right? So with friend. And that's kind of their version of Copilot specifically for Khan Academy. But today, we in our joint partnership, we announced that we are giving that away to all US educators for free, which is an extremely awesome announcement. Super excited to be a part of that. So I highly encourage you to go check out the build announcements today, specifically that one for our EDU friends. But we have a few other housekeeping items, and then we're going to talk about the really big announcements, which actually happened yesterday with our AI PCs and Copilot Plus PCs. And Richard's going to dive into a little bit more of that. And again, Microsoft marketing at its finest. All right, so a couple of housekeeping items. Number one, thank you for all of you who have completed the survey. A couple of weeks ago, we asked you all to fill out this survey just to give us some feedback on, what are you getting out of this call? Is it relevant to you? Is it helpful? What content do you want to see? Awesome, amazing feedback that I think the team, we really reflected on that, and we've already made some changes based on that feedback. So thank you again. This survey is actually still open. If you want to go complete, if you haven't had a chance to, feel free. We're always looking for that feedback. And again, as always, we're just super grateful for this community that we've built. And hopefully you are getting more and more value out of this each and every day. So based on that, we have an exciting announcement because a lot of you shared that, the recordings of the calls being a little slow to get those uploaded, so I do apologize on that. But also getting access to the slide deck. So we do put these slide decks together with links to be able to showcase some of the articles out there and just different references for your sake. And within the team itself, it's just difficult to do external sharing, specifically with Microsoft's improvements around security, even in our own environment. A lot of things are being locked down. So we are actually migrating this group, not the Teams meeting itself, but the team, the group aspect of it, to LinkedIn groups. And this will hopefully enable you all to join in, and it's more of a social platform, so we can actually keep those conversations going. It is a private group, so you will have to be accepted into the group, but it's a click of a button for us to be able to approve you all, instead of us trying to manually add your email addresses, which is kind of cumbersome for us when we get a large influx of requests. But we are able to post the slide decks there, and you all can consume them and enjoy them as you need. So we've already got this live now. You can actually click this link right here. I'm going to throw it in the chat as well. And hopefully you find this valuable. Now, I realize that some of you do not have a LinkedIn account. So the team is still active. We're not necessarily deprecating that team just yet. But we do think that for collaboration purposes, amongst this group of external users together, that the LinkedIn group is going to add more value, and hopefully it'll be a little bit easier for us to maintain as well. So yeah, Richard, any other comments or thoughts on that while I pull this link up?
Yeah, I think what we're seeing with the Mac admins community, that they went from Viva Engage over to LinkedIn groups, and what we're seeing there is there's actually been a lot of a lot of folks are actually joining and they're communicating over there, and it looks like it's working well for them. And so, of the office hours communities, it's not just us. We also have the national office hours. We have Azure Hour. There's VDI office hours. There's security office hours. And so, with all the different office hours that we have within education, they all pretty much operate the same way. You fill out a form, and then there's a team that's backed behind all of that, where we have to add you manually. And in most of those communities, it like for you guys to be able to communicate with us, you have to switch out of your tenant into our tenant, communicate, and then go back into your own tenant. And then if someone responds to your thing, you then have to go look at the notification and switch back in. So there's a lot of switching back and forth, and it doesn't get the engagement that I think we could have. So I know a lot of you guys have lots of different questions, and so I think the LinkedIn group should be a better platform for this. And so we'll try this out and see. We've already posted the last 3 YouTube recordings for office hours. The decks
and
are
slide
also
decks.
Yep, the decks are there too. So we'll continue to do that. It should make it a lot easier for us to get this info out to you guys. And if you guys have questions around it, you don't have to wait for the calls. You could always just ask the question to the group, and we're going to be there, just like the rest of the community should be there to help you guys out.
100%. So again, make sure that you request to join this one. Again, it'll be really quick for us to allow you into that group. The first time you post in that group, it will have to be approved by us, but that's just for us to validate that you are who you say you are, and that no inappropriate content is being shared. Every time you share a link as well, that will need to be approved by us, just to keep things clean and appropriate for everyone involved. So just be aware of those couple nuances there. But if you're just posting, just a question in the chat or something like that, once you've done one post already, then there's no limit there. You don't need to wait for approval. So again, hopefully this will boost engagement. We're also going to get more of the Microsoft team to hopefully join in on this one. So hopefully it'll be good for you all. And again, we're able to share media and polls and different things like that in there. But again, I'm going to stress that does not change this meeting invite. The meeting itself remains. We will still have our ongoing chat here. This is really just the team aspect. Like if you think about what the community questions channel does, that's essentially what we're moving over into LinkedIn. So nothing is changing with this reoccurring meeting on your calendar. That all stays the same.
Awesome.
Is that a thumbs up? Is that a good? Are you excited? Give us a little bit of feedback. Is that one thumbs up?
Got thumbs up.
Okay, good. Let's try it out again. We're gonna.
That works.
This is coming from your feedback, so keep that feedback coming. All right. Let's move into the big announcements yesterday. Richard, we had the announcements, if you haven't seen it, the announcement of AI PCs. And we had this a little bit earlier in the year with the Surface Laptop 6 for business and the Surface Pro 10 for business, where we talked about AI PCs that actually included an NPU in the device, not just a CPU and a GPU, but now an NPU. But then yesterday we came back with some even more exciting announcements, not just with Microsoft Surface specifically, but all of our OEM partners announcing a new wave of Windows AI PC. So I'm going to turn it over to you to talk about this.
Oh, thanks. So we made an announcement yesterday around these new Copilot Plus PCs. So you probably saw a lot of this yesterday, and you're probably wondering, like, what the heck is a Copilot Plus PC? Well, what we announced yesterday with Surface were two new devices: a new Surface Pro 2-in-1, and then a new Surface Laptop variant. Garrett, let's go ahead and actually I can move these, can I?
Yeah, you should be able to.
Okay. Take control. So
there you go.
Okay, cool. So before we get into the device itself, just so everyone understands the entire Surface portfolio, I'm not going to talk about each one of these devices, but if you look at our platform offering, there's really three three main categories we have. We have the 2-in-1, we have the laptop, and we have the large screen devices like the Surface Studio 2 Plus and the Surface Hub 3. What we made an announcement yesterday was really around the Surface 2-in-1, the new Surface Pro model, and then the Surface Laptop models. And these are both Copilot Plus PCs. They're different than the Surface Pro 10 and the Surface Laptop 6 that Garrett had mentioned earlier, in that these devices are actually running ARM-based processors. And so if we look at what these devices both entail, when we compare the Surface Pro line today, now this is an eye chart. I'm not going to go through all this. This is actually really more so for you guys will have access to this deck. We're going to upload it to the LinkedIn group, so you'll be able to download this. And this is effectively a placemat of the different variants that we have with Surface Pro and Surface Laptop. But the one to focus on, really, actually, the two things really to focus on is if you look at the Surface Pro 10, the Surface Pro 10 device comes with an Intel Core Ultra processor. So the Core Ultra processors, they are AI-based devices. They're AI PCs. But the difference between the Core Ultra devices and the Surface Pro devices that are running the Snapdragon X Elite processors is that the Snapdragon X Elite processor actually has an NPU that drives up to 45 TOPS, or TOPS, so trillions of operations per second. When you look at an AI PC that is running off of a Core Ultra processor, that's going to roughly be about 15 TOPS. So when you compare both devices, you're going to have a significantly faster NPU on the Snapdragon X Elite processor versus an Intel Core Ultra processor. Both are still AI-based PCs, but the Copilot Plus PCs that you see, not just from us, but also other OEMs, those devices are all going to have, they're going to be able to drive at least 40 TOPS. Right now with the current Elite X or the Snapdragon X Elite processor, it's driving up to 45. But as processors get more improved over the years, you'll start to see more and more TOPS as we expand on this.
Their smartness improves.
Their smartness will improve.
Actually, but really quick on this, like
I'm telling you.
Yeah, I think TOPS, this is relatively new, but trillions of operations per second, this is specific to NPUs, and it's a way to measure that, right? So you're going to start seeing this as kind of a spec across these new line of devices. The more TOPS you have, the more it can do, right? So just kind of be aware of that when you hear the word TOPS. That's what that means.
Yeah, and we're in an interesting spot today because I was talking to our team internally about this, and you're kind of hearing this across the industry, is that we're in a moment now where, if you remember back when devices first were using GPUs for things other than games and graphics, like Office integrated hardware acceleration, so it could take advantage of the GPU. Your browser takes advantage of the GPU outside of things, aside from just video. We're basically the same spot now that we were back then when that started to happen, where now NPUs are being used to offload things that the CPU would generally do. So most people don't have NPUs on their devices, whether it's a laptop, desktop, most people just don't have an NPU. But now that NPUs are becoming more and more important with all these AI different workloads, we're going to offshoot a lot of that CPU workload that the AI, whatever AI was doing now, we're going to offload that all to an NPU now. And so what that provides is the ability for us to locally run some of the stuff that right now is being run through the large language model in the cloud. Like when you open up Copilot or when you open up ChatGPT and you have it execute whatever it is that you're chatting with it about, it's all being processed up in the cloud. But eventually that has to come down to the processor, or down locally to you. And it's got to be processed by something. And if you try to do that on your CPU, it's going to be super slow. But if you have an NPU to handle a lot of that work, and it's only dedicated for that work, it's going to be much, much faster. And so what you're seeing today with the announcements that we made yesterday and today at Build is that these Copilot Plus PCs, with that NPU, we're also actually including in Windows a small language model, or an SLM. So you have the LLMs, which is what we're used to when we talk about Copilot and ChatGPT, but now we have SLMs, so small language models. And so what we have is something called Phi, or 5.3. It's PHI 3. That's our model that we have developed, and we introduced today this Phi Silica model that we're using to drive something called recall. And so if you saw our announcement yesterday about the Copilot Plus PCs, you probably saw a demo of something called recall, which is effectively like a timeline of everything that you see on your PC. So anything that you've watched, if you've opened up a web browser and you've looked at something, or if you had a PowerPoint presentation, or even just this team meeting that we're watching right now, if you're like, hey, Richard was talking about the Surface Pro devices, you could just do a search for Surface Pro Copilot Plus PC, and you get this slide, or any of the slides that I've shown so far up till now. You would actually be able to search your device using the Recall app and go back to that moment in time when what you saw on your PC. Now, a lot of people might think, oh, this is big brother. This is a super scary kind of proposition. Like, hey, I want to be able to control all of this. There are controls for it locally, because all this stuff is all stored local on your machine. Now, we could have an entire conversation. We could talk a full hour about recall and what it does and what it's capable of, how to control it and all that. That's going to come. We'll have some time to talk about that later. But the stuff that we're doing right now with AI and with these PCs is phenomenal in terms of what you're going to be able to do. So this is Surface Pro. You see on the screen here all the different features. I'm not going to drain the slide, but again, the big thing to point out here, that these are running on Windows on ARM, Snapdragon X Elite processors with an NPU that gets you up to 45 TOPS. So pretty impressive specs on these devices. Placemat slide for all of the specs. Pro. One thing I did want to call out for external monitors. So for some of you that might be trying to drive 2 or 3 monitors, I don't know if Pro can do it, but the Laptop 3, actually the Pro can do it as well. You can actually drive up to 3 4K monitors at 60 Hertz. Now, for some of you guys, that might not be a big deal. For me, I used to use Surface all the time. I had to stop using Surface when I got 2 4K monitors because I couldn't drive them both at 60 Hertz. I could drive one at 60 Hertz and I could drive the second one at 30 Hertz. And it was not a great experience. So I ended up just kind of ditching my Surface device. I went to a desktop PC. But now we're actually able to drive 3 4K monitors at 60. It's a pretty big improvement. So I'm pretty happy to see that. And now for the Surface laptop devices. So today, Surface laptop, we have Studio 2, we have Laptop Go 3. These devices have been out in market for some time now. Laptop Go has been around for a bit. We just introduced the new Laptop Go 3, about 6 months ago, 9 months ago.
Yeah.
But now we've got Laptop 4, we've got Laptop 5. Garrett just got a Laptop 6. He's super excited about that because his keyboard works. But then we also have now the Surface Laptop 7th generation.
We're going to wait in a month.
I told you to wait, but you didn't listen. And so now you're stuck without the top. You only got 15 TOPS.
That's right.
Instead of 45. So, but the Surface Laptop 7th generation, again running Snapdragon X Elite processor. We're saying that this device, the CPU is up to 86% faster than the Surface Laptop 5. We aren't comparing against your laptop, Garrett. We're going back a previous generation Intel Evo devices because we don't want to make the Laptop 6 sound like it's any weaker.
Of course not.
But it's also just a completely different experience too, right? I mean, you got ARM-based devices versus x86 Intel traditional devices that we're used to seeing out in the market. So the new laptop device, I'm contemplating getting one. I don't know yet. We'll see. But they are it looks pretty impressive given battery life, performance. We're comparing the performance against the Mac M3, Mac M2 devices. That we really think now that these devices are actually going to be more impressive than the M1 or the M3 devices that are out there today from Apple.
Yeah, and again, I know he's highlighting Surface right now because we're Microsoft, but understand that the entire OEM stack, right? Dell, Lenovo, HP, they all made announcements yesterday. So do your due diligence. I threw a link in the deck too that you'll have access to. You can go look. We already have a lot of those publicized on our site now for the Copilot Plus PCs. Check them all out because they're pretty amazing.
Yeah, lots of those announcements came out yesterday from the other OEMs as well. So Dell, HP, Lenovo, Acer, Asus.
Yep. Yep.
They all have devices that are coming. Most of them, I think all of them are pretty much running the same processors, whether it's the Snapdragon X Elite or the Snapdragon X Plus.
Yep. Yep.
Those devices are all going to be basically running the same CPU, so they'll have the same CPU, same GPU. Now, if they've got a separate dedicated GPU, that's going to be a completely different story. So in terms of like if you're looking at gaming, consumer kind of scenarios, those devices could be slightly different. But for the most part, base processor, it's going to either be the Snapdragon X Elite or Snapdragon Plus. So Surface Laptop, again, it kind of looks like the same, similar slide as before we had with Surface Pro. So you can check that out. Same spec sheets. So you'll have all access to all that, and then the same looking external setup guide that we have here.
Yep.
And then just to kind of wrap, a couple announcements from Intune. It's kind of funny this week. We didn't really have much with Intune, but we had so much more with Windows, and it's usually the reverse.
Yeah.
So, but no, this is all good stuff. So we are introducing a new enrollment method for staging corporate Android devices with Microsoft Intune. So take a look at that if you're interested. And then enabling zero-touch enrollment of MDE on Mac OS devices managed by Intune. There's now a blog post up on that. And then one thing I did want to call, I didn't put the link to it here, but we did have some confusion last week around MFA being enabled for all Azure users. And I think a lot of folks in the EDU space were very concerned around Azure. I don't know if, let me see if I can pull this up, Garrett.
You got the Message Center post?
I don't have the Message Center post, but wasn't ready to actually bring this one up. With all the other announcements yesterday, I totally forgot about this until like literally right now. Let's see. The long and short of it, though, is that blog post is a little misleading. It's actually not for all users. It's for anyone that's trying to access the Azure portal.
Yeah, Azure portal users, not Azure users.
Yeah.
Which means that like students are excluded from that, right? Which was the big one. I know I had a number of customers reach out directly to me saying, are all my students going to be prompted to enroll into MFA? That's not going to work. and that's not what the Message Center post was saying.
Yeah, let me stop that share, and then I'm going to share this. So the post in the chat is the one I'm talking about.
Do you want me to pull it up and share my screen?
No, I'm sharing my screen. I just had to list a bunch of things.
You didn't want to reveal all your Microsoft secrets to everyone?
Not all the other work that I've been working on the last 3 hours. All right, so the Microsoft will require MFA for all Azure users. So I saw this headline on the 14th when this was posted, and I was like, oh crap. Because I knew that emails were going to start going, and a lot of people would get kind of freaked out about it. So what this really means, we're not going to read the whole thing, but what it really means is that your Azure portal, anyone that's trying to access the Azure portal, whether it's going to the website, whether it's using CLI, whether it's PowerShell, any method that you can use to actually get access to Azure, that's where we're requiring MFA. It's not for your student users, which the big concern was, hey, my students are going to need MFA. There's no way that we're going to be able to leverage Azure AD for my users if they all have to use MFA. That's not the case. And if you scroll down the comment section is always great because you get so many people like freaking out. And,
I think I've already seen the word student 4 times in
yeah,
just your scrolling.
Like student. But there's a post here from Naj Shade. He's actually the PM that is leading this initiative within Azure. And he's the one that actually clarifies what this is. And I was saying like this whole post should be the blog post, not what was up above, like explaining what MFA is. People kind of know what MFA is. It's really like what is actually going to be happening here. And so what's happening is that the timeline beginning July 24th or July 2024, a gradual rollout of this enforcement for portal only will commence. Once we have completed the rollout for the portal, a similar gradual rollout will start for CLI, PowerShell, and Terraform. And we understand that the impact this enforcement could have on automated scripts using user identities, and thus are prioritizing enforcement for the portal to provide additional time to adapt if needed. So long and short of this is that this is for portal access or things that would, if you're automating through PowerShell, CLI, Terraform, all that stuff is going to be impacted. But it is not going to impact your student users. And so that's what I wanted to make sure that it was clear for everyone. If you come across this post, I know it's been shared around Reddit. I know it's been shared on some internal email distribution lists, listservs and stuff like that. So this is not as scary as it looked about a week ago. So.
But for demo tenants, it's kind of frustrating. I'm going to admit, because all my users know.
It is pretty frustrating for demo tenants. We both keep getting the MFA prompts for every little thing that we want to do. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing, and I haven't checked. Is Ravi here yet?
He is here, and he is a presenter now. So look, right. There he is, the man. All right, so for those of you who have not met Ravi actually used to be a PM on the education team specifically for Intune. So super, super excited to have him back to talk about his new work, which is very relevant to today. So without further ado, Ravi, if you want to share your screen, we'll kick it over to you. Thanks so much for joining us.
I can do that. I'll start sharing in a second, but first of all, I just want to say it's so good to see you guys again. Garrett, it's been forever. Richard, we chatted a little bit before this, but indeed, like Garrett mentioned, so I'm a PM on Intune. I've been working on Intune for about 8 years now. And I spent the first 4 or 5 of those years working in education. So I was one of the PMs that worked on building the Intune for Education console, as well as working with folks here like Richard and Garrett on some great EDU customer engagement. So that was an amazing experience. I learned a whole lot about Intune and about our education customers. I'm here now to talk to you, like Garrett said, about some of the new stuff that I'm working on. For the last year or so, I've been working on Copilot integration with Intune, so Copilot for security and Intune. So we spent the first half talking about Copilot and PCs. Let's keep the Copilot theme going as it's kind of the new hype train. So I'll start sharing my screen. Can you guys see that okay? Garrett, Richard, everybody?
Yeah, looks great.
Good.
Okay, awesome. So I've got a slide deck to run through with you guys. What I want to do today is just inform this group a little bit about what we've been working on. So give you an overview of what Copilot for Security is, whether or not you've heard of it. It may be a good review for you, or it could be a bit of a new learning, and how Intune kind of fits into that landscape. And then we'll talk a little bit specifically about some of the scenarios that we've been working on, that we've built, that we have in public preview today, where Copilot is helping IT admins do their jobs more effectively. And finally, I'll briefly touch on some cross-product capabilities, just to sow some seeds in your minds about how Intune and this platform can help realize more than just Intune value, and help both IT admins and other personas in the organization work more effectively. So with that, let's jump right into it. And throughout this presentation, what I'd love to hear from you, whether that's in the chat or through feedback that you share later, is, hey, do these capabilities seem interesting and useful to you? Is this something that you would make use of? And sort of what would it take, or what, from your perspective for your organization, what would it take to see your organization even partially adopt some of this and start using it? So keep that in mind as we go through. So with that, let's jump right into it. Super excited to be here today. So let's start at the top with Copilot for Security. So many of you may have seen this sort of flywheel graphic before. I like to start with it to just talk about where Intune fits in this landscape. As you might have already heard, there are several different Copilots, sort of classic Microsoft. Copilot is obviously an umbrella brand, but there are several platforms within Microsoft, several underlying implementations of what we call Copilot that help customers in different capacities. So Copilot for Security is one of those flavors, which brings together a bunch of enterprise solutions across security, compliance, identity, and management to basically supercharge the enterprise's IT strategy. So you'll see here that Intune, alongside 5 other products, Entra, the artist formerly known as Azure AD, Defender and Sentinel, as well as Purview and Priva, they all come together to contribute their data, their capabilities, what we call skills, to this Copilot platform that enable users, whether you're an IT admin working in Intune, a SOC analyst working in Defender, a security admin working across multiple of these products, you can leverage the data and the capabilities and the skills from all of these products to better inform the work that you do, to learn more about your environment and to more quickly understand your environment. And ultimately, the hope is to help you do your job more effectively. So with that in mind, when we think about what should we build for Intune admins, what should we build in Intune for Copilot, there are some principles that we tried to use to drive our approach. Generative AI, Copilot, this new technology, it's really, really, really good for some things. It's pretty good at some other things, and it's not so great at a bunch of other stuff. And so as we sort of take this lens of, let's see what Copilot is really good at, and we applied these principles of simplifying the complex for the admin. Anything that we build, we want to make sure that we're really saving time and effort for IT admins, especially in those tasks that they might spend a bunch of time and effort to get done today. And meet admins where they're already working. So, we don't want our customers to have to learn some new tool just because we've got a new platform to take advantage of these awesome Copilot capabilities. So we want to meet our customers in the context of the tools that they're already working. And ultimately, with those two things, we want to use Copilot to help our customers, again, whether you're an IT admin or a SOC analyst or somebody else, we want to help our customers focus on what's important for their roles. So taking these principles in mind and applying it to the many conversations that we've had and the many evaluations that we made on where should we start and what should we build up here, we sort of coalesced around 4 pillars, four pillars of scenarios or capabilities that are characterized by these 4 words: summarize, ask, create, and act. So these are the things that Copilot's both great for and the things that we think are going to help you, save time and effort in what you do. Things like summarizing a policy, describing its security impact, all the way to helping you actually create new policy by giving you guidance, helping you create summaries for executives or other business departments that are requesting certain information. And then over on the right side with ask and act, being able to ask things of your environment that normally would take a bunch of time and effort for you to get that information, and have Copilot serve that up to you much more quickly. Things like analyzing error codes, helping you troubleshoot devices, and finally using Copilot to pull all of this together and act meaningfully on what you found out or what you've acquired from Copilot. So helping you put automations in place, helping you put best practice recommendations in place. So we're not going to talk about every single one of these today. We're going to look at some demo videos of some Copilot scenarios that touch on some of this stuff that hopefully give you an idea of how we're achieving some of these things. Almost done with the high-level context. A couple of things to keep in mind. Copilot for Security is its own product. It's its own standalone portal where that's a screenshot. That's the screenshot you're seeing on the left, where again, as a SOC analyst or a security admin or an IT admin or somebody else as a governance admin, I can go here and start having an open interaction, natural language conversation with my environment. Basically, you'll see a little chat box at the bottom where I can really type in any question about my environment, whether it's about security or my policies. And if one of our products have built a skill that can go fetch the data you're asking for and compose a response, then Copilot will come back and give you something. And so over on the left, this standalone, this new, might have been referred to as the immersive experience. This is a new portal that brings all of these products together. On the right, you'll see what we refer to as the embedded experience or embedded in the product. So these are screenshots of Copilot showing up in places in the Intune console where you can just summon up Copilot right there in the context of what you're doing. And it's got contextual awareness of like the device you're looking at or the policy you're looking at. And we'll see some of that in a little bit. And the other products, Defender, Sentinel, Purview, they all have their own embedded experiences too. So the standalone immersive experience alongside all these embedded experiences where these same Copilot capabilities get brought in context together make up what is available with Copilot for Security. Just a quick note on RBAC and access control. This is a common topic that comes up in a lot of conversations like this one. Copilot for Security requires some roles, one specific intro role to be able to access Copilot at all, as well as some configuration in the Copilot portal. But beyond that, everything you do as a user interacting with Copilot is compliant with the RBAC that you already have set up. So if I go to Copilot standalone and I type in a question, or even if I use one of the Intune experiences that you'll see in a moment, the response is coming back from Copilot. The kind of data that it can reason over and access is scoped to whatever I'm scoped to with my role in Intune and in Entra. So Copilot's not some kind of backdoor that's giving you access to more data than you're supposed to have. And just as an example, even going outside Intune, an Intune admin can't suddenly start to see data from Defender unless they've been granted access through RBAC to do so. So just want to reassure folks that are listening or might have this question that this is the case. So with that, I want to spend the rest of the time here just talking about two pillars, two key pieces. Oh, is there a question or a thought? Yeah. Sounds like somebody may have accidentally come off mute. Yeah. No worries. If there are questions,
off mute. Sorry about that.
No worries whatsoever. Feel free to put questions in the chat or just raise your hand if you have anything to ask. So I'm going to keep rolling here. So I want to talk for the rest of our time about how Copilot's actually helping IT admins and strengthening device security, and how with Intune data we are helping enhance SOC investigation. So that's some of the more cross-product stuff. So let's actually start with IT admins. Of course, this is an Intune focused call. Let's talk about what we have in development. So everything you're about to see is available today in public preview. We'll talk a little bit more about timeline at the end of this. And so some of our customers are playing around with this right now and giving us feedback. So when you enable Copilot, you'll see in Intune this sweet banner across the portal that's nudging you toward a couple of our key capabilities. The two areas we'll talk about here briefly are policy management and Copilot helping there, and troubleshooting. And so I think we're going to start with troubleshooting. So we've got a demo video to play here. So let's see this. Give me 1 second here.
Did they put you in a more serious brace, or is that the same one I saw before? Is that the same brace I saw before, or they put you in?
Let's see. So I'd hidden that slide. Sorry about that. So let's start clicking through Copilot. Let's see how Copilot can help with troubleshooting devices. We've built a few key capabilities that, again, are supposed to save admins time and effort when they are investigating devices for troubleshooting cases or collaborating with other admins. So you'll see here that there's a Explore with Copilot button that we have in the context of any device that you click into in Intune. And that's going to give you a number of capabilities: summarizing the device, analyzing an error code, showing apps, policies, group memberships on the device. So I'll start. The video demo here starts with just asking Copilot to summarize the device. Why is this useful? Of course, I could click around the various screens here and get a bunch of information about the properties of this device, the groups that it's in, how many policies it has assigned to it. And this might be something that I'm doing if, say, I haven't looked at this device in a while, if I'm collaborating with other IT admins on investigating this device, or even collaborating with somebody outside of Intune who's reviewing the security of this device and wants a summary of it. You'll see here that Copilot came back with all this information just pulled together: the key device properties, the group memberships, the things like the compliance state, as well as just other critical information. And it also gives me links to go look at this device in Intune and go look at this device in Entra. Of course, as an Intune admin, I can just look at this device here. But again, if I'm collaborating across teams or collaborating across IT admins, I can just pull this summary together in one click and share this with them to help speed up our investigation. And I didn't have to spend the time sort of clicking across screens to get this data. Let's look at something a little more in depth, because summarizing a device, sure, it's interesting, but it's a little bit simple. With Copilot, you can actually compare a device with another device to have Copilot generate a summary of the differences and the similarities. So you'll see here I put in a device name and asked Copilot to compare the configuration profiles between these devices. This is really useful, especially when you've got a situation where you've got one device that, like two devices that are really similar. One's kind of misbehaving, and another one is behaving as expected. And you're like, well, what's the difference between these? Do I have maybe a policy targeted to one that I don't have targeted to the other? Is there some app differences? Are there some group membership differences? I can, of course, again, click between these two devices in the console, see all the profiles that are assigned, do that comparison manually, or I can ask Copilot to do that heavy lifting for me, do that comparison for me, reason over the details of, again, the group memberships, what policies are assigned to the device, and then generate this response for me so that I can then review that quickly. I can share that with other team members that I'm working with. And ultimately, Copilot with this summary is helping me sort of drill into the stuff that's important. So the text here is a little bit small. I wish I had zoomed in, but what's being compared here is common sets of policies, including names of policies that are common between these two devices, unique policies that are different between these two devices, as well as some of the policy status differences. So we've actually made some improvements to the summary since now to translate some of these status codes a little bit better through Copilot. But this has given me this sort of at-a-glance view where if I see that there's a unique policy for one of these devices, especially the misbehaving one, well, that's the one that I'm maybe going to go drill into now, or contact my fellow IT admin who's in charge of that policy to look into that further to help diagnose a misbehaving device. There are other capabilities that you saw up at the top here, things like analyzing an error code. So error code's typically seen whether it's by an end user using a device, or an error code you see in the Intune console for some issue. If you don't quite understand what that error code is, you could just pop that code into Copilot here. Copilot goes and looks at our first-party authoritative sources like our docs, our KBs, and it brings information about the error code right into the context here of the device you're looking at. So you didn't have to leave Intune and spend some time doing your own research to get that information. So we're not going to quite show every single capability here, but I hope these couple of examples help you understand how some of even these basic troubleshooting capabilities can help save time and effort for IT admins. Looking ahead, we're looking at more troubleshooting capabilities. Things like integration into remote help is something that we're investigating to help admins use Copilot to summarize what's going on with the device in that troubleshooting scenario. So there's a lot more coming, and this is just the beginning. But this is supposed to, help give you a flavor and an understanding of the kinds of things Copilot does well. Moving right along, we will now take a look at policy management and how Copilot can help you there. So we've done a couple of things here in a similar vein to help admins better understand their policies and better manage their policies. I want you to imagine a situation where you are going now to look at a policy that you haven't touched in months or several weeks, or maybe you're going to go look at making changes to a policy that both you and another IT admin in your environment are in charge of. And so as you're getting into any of these things with policy management, Copilot can be right there by your side to help you understand your policies better with less effort, and then help you sort of proceed with whatever change that you are looking to make. So there we go. I think the video has started playing. So here I'm just going to ask Copilot to summarize this policy. Of course, I could click through the policy properties myself. I could go, look up the settings, look up what the settings do. I could go look at the group memberships. Some of this is available on this screen. But especially if I haven't touched this policy in a while, or if there are settings in this policy that I may be unfamiliar with, that can take, some time. I might have to open up a few tabs to get that data, or I might even have to, ping one of my IT admins and wait until they give me a response on what exactly is in this policy and what does it do. So again, instead, I'm going to ask Copilot to do the heavy lifting, and you'll see that it comes back with a summary of all the key settings in this policy, information about what the setting is actually set to, and what those settings actually do. So this is super useful to me if I haven't looked at this policy in a while, but also useful, again, as a report that I can just copy paste and send over to another business department, another admin, or even my boss who's asking for a summary of, hey, what's in our default security policy? What are the policies that are in there? What are the settings that are in there? What do they do? Taking this a step further, something that we think is going to help IT admins stay in a security mindset, continue to be in a security mindset, is describing the impact of policies on security. So again, this is something that would take several minutes, if not even an hour or so of research on going into a policy, looking at the individual settings and determining what is the security impact of these settings. If I set it one way or the other, what could that mean for the security of my users or my devices? Here, what we have Copilot doing is something similar to above. It's looking over the policy, it's looking over all the settings and what they actually do. And it's also, once again, going out to our first party sources, our documentation, our KB articles, all our authoritative first-party Microsoft sources, and Copilot's going to come back with a summary again, setting by setting, talking about what each of these settings do and what setting it one way or another means from a security perspective. So we'll see that in just a second. And once this sort of comes back, I want to highlight one of these. So there's, the video will scroll up and down a little bit to show you that every single setting is summarized, and it says allowing it does this, denying it does that, setting this setting in another way does that. Once we scroll down here, I'm just going to pause the video. Things like controlling BitLocker. The one that I want to draw your attention to is this last one here. And this is just one of the many examples, but attack surface reduction rules, blocking untrusted and unsigned processes that run from USB. Copilot's summary here is something that I might say to an admin who's evaluating the security of this setting and evaluating this policy. It's saying blocking untrusted and unsigned processes from running from USB devices can significantly enhance security, which is totally true. However, there are legitimate use cases where it could impact user productivity if these users are doing this. If they're typically running unsigned or untrusted processes, you might have developers in your organization that are doing this to quickly, load up some packages or just do their work. Otherwise, you might have security admins that are doing this to actually test the security of your environment. And so this kind of advice is something that maybe even an analyst would give to an IT admin that's evaluating these devices. And it kind of makes them think like, hey, do I have users with legitimate use cases where I might want to turn this off? And it's going to help me go shape another policy potentially. Or maybe I decide, no, I want to actually, enforce this across the organization. But ultimately, Copilot giving me that security impact is not just helping me effectively manage my devices, but in finding that delicate balance between productivity and security, where things are locked down as much as possible so that my devices and my users are secure, but they're also not so locked down that I'm preventing them from being productive or getting their jobs done or blocking them because of a security policy. So those are just a couple of examples. Again, we have more coming in the policy space in terms of things like conflict analysis and helping you build your policies. Excuse me for just a second, got to clear my throat. And so, again, all of these capabilities are in public preview, and we're really excited to build on this stuff to make it even easier to interact with your policies and your devices. So with that, I just want to speed through the last few minutes here talking about cross-product capabilities. And this is really to, sow the seeds in your mind of how we can go beyond Intune with Copilot. So this is where, the other one's supposed to be highlighted. We'll talk about enhancing SOC investigations. So here we are in the standalone Copilot for Security portal. And as an IT admin or as a SOC analyst, I can just ask Copilot, tell me about devices for a particular user. And this information that comes back from Intune, the user, when the user was created, what devices they have, when these devices were enrolled, whether they're compliant. This is all data that's unique to Intune, that's not readily available for a SOC analyst in the Defender portal. So if we take this over to Defender, we've actually integrated this data into the device security summary in Defender so that a SOC analyst can see who owns this device, who's the primary user of this device, what is the device actually? Is it a mobile phone? Is it a server? Is it a workstation? And this type of information, again, which is uniquely coming from Intune, is actually helping analysts figure out what their next steps are in triaging an alert and figuring out how to treat this device next in an investigation. The next steps may be different depending on what kind of device it is and who really is the user that's using it. And so the reason that I share this is because, first of all, there's a lot of information that Intune has that can not just help these analysts, but help IT admins be more effective in managing device security. Are there policies in place on this device to prevent users from tampering with security, like disabling AV, for example? Is the device owner still active in the organization? Has anything recently changed in this device's configuration that I should be aware of? These are things that we're actively thinking about where and how to expose them with Copilot to not just help those other personas, but help IT admins as well. And this is a two-way street. So something that we're also actively investigating is, can we pull in data from Defender into Intune such that IT admins can benefit as well? Things like discovered vulnerabilities in the Defender portal for a device, discovered vulnerable software. Is the device you're looking at, IT admin, is it involved in an alert or an incident right now? And knowing that might have you hold off on making changes to that device, or even contact your security admins to talk with them about it to see if you can help. So again, this cross-product value is something that we get as an advantage with Intune being part of this Copilot for Security platform, and it's a two-way street that can benefit admins and other roles in the organization together. So with that, I sort of gave this crew a crash course on things that we're working on within Intune and outside of Intune with Copilot for Security. Here's where we are in terms of timeline. So back in October, we launched our early access program, where a select group of customers got access to Copilot for Security, including some of the very early Intune skills that we built. This EAP was really security operations focused on the SOC, focused on Defender customers. But as time went on, we announced our IT admin focused capabilities in private preview at Ignite, and we launched our private preview shortly thereafter. And now everything that I showed you in terms of the Intune capabilities, the policy summarization, the troubleshooting, the error code analysis, this is all now in public preview as of the beginning of April. And we're working through iterations, customer feedback to improve these features and add new capabilities as we look toward general availability of these Copilot capabilities later this year. So that's kind of where we're at. We're in our first wave, is the way that I like to call it, of building some of these Copilot capabilities. And I'm really excited to put these in the hands of customers. And I'm really, really excited to take some of these things to level 2, where Copilot's getting even deeper into some of your tenant data and helping you answer some really complex questions that, again, would normally take you a lot of time and effort otherwise. So with that, I know I stepped through some of that really, really quickly, but we have a few minutes left. I hope this was a useful and informative session for you. And if it wasn't, I'm not afraid to hear that. Please tell me what you would have liked to see or hear that you didn't. And I can work with Richard and Garrett to supply some of that information offline to help better educate you and just and bring more awareness to this. So thank you so much for lending me your ear. I appreciate it. Thank you, Garrett and Richard, for having me. And yeah, really appreciate any feedback. And if we do have a couple of minutes, I'm happy to answer any questions. So.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Ravi. I think this is a topic that it's interesting because we primarily work in the device management space. Most of the folks here on this call, device admins. But then as security is, it runs the gamut, right? Like, it's not just the device, it's your data, it's your identity, it's all over the place. And so Copilot for Security really kind of crosses all of those other boundaries. And so one of the things, though, that I think, you and I kind of talked about a bit is, a lot of the stuff that you showed for just Intune, that's something that I think customers, just that by itself, I think there's some definite value there, right? It's like, you didn't even show the tooltips, but if you go through a configuration profile and you start just clicking through like all the different things that you could set in the settings catalog, like today, if you click those informational bubbles, it's just basically taking the CSP documentation. It's like a copy and paste from that. And it's kind of ugly because some of those CSPs are very verbose and it's not formatted very well. And so you may not even understand, like, what the heck am I trying to set here? Because this info just doesn't make any sense to me. But if you had Copilot for Security, you actually get a much better experience just explaining what a setting might actually have. Like, so you can see the Copilot icon right next to each of the settings. You click on that, it spans the flyout, and it's just basically going out and writing the prompt for you to do the search and get back the result for what that setting is actually doing. And so like Ravi, you've got the one below that for control use of BitLocker on removable devices. See the informational bubble, like that right there. Some of that stuff is very verbose, right? And if you click on the learn more, it's going to take you out to the CSP docs. But getting the actual response directly in console for what the AI generated information is can actually be a bit more helpful.
Absolutely. And like, one of the stories we're trying to tell here, to your point earlier, is that device management is device security. Like managing devices has its place in the security landscape. And one thing I will admit is that even this is a little bit verbose, and that's one of the things that we've heard from customers, like, hey, this is really important, valuable information, but can you format this in a way that's a little more, digestible or consumable? And that's some of the stuff that we're thinking about. But to your point, Richard, this is something much more readable and consumable than just a wall of text that you would get from the tooltips. Feels more like a natural language conversation or a natural language interaction. And it just helps you digest and understand what these settings are and their impact a little bit more easily. So, and this is available whether you're looking at an existing policy for an individual setting or when you're creating a new policy and you're adding a bunch of settings to a settings catalog policy, you can use Copilot right there before you've even created the policy to understand the setting, what it does, and to make sure that you've sort of set it right. So yeah, thanks for highlighting that one. That wasn't part of the demos.
Yeah, no, perfect.
There's a question in the chat about costs. So the short answer here is that Copilot for Security uses a consumption model. So it's a little bit different from M365 and some of the other things that they're used to licensing that Intune has. So to get Copilot and to get Copilot enabled in Intune, you have to go sign up for Copilot for Security and purchase some security capacity units that you provision in your tenant. And then that will, once you turn that on, it'll basically turn on these Copilot embedded experiences in Intune and give you access to Copilot for Security. So right now it's a separate cost.
All right. Any other questions before I wrap up here?
Really quick, Richard, do you just want to call out the OSU?
Yeah, so I posted
story.
a link. Yeah, I posted a link in there to a customer story from Morgan State University who was a part of our early access program for Microsoft Copilot for Security. So if you guys are interested in hearing what a higher ed university did with Copilot for Security, take a look at that customer story. It's pretty good in my opinion.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. Awesome. Well, we are at time. So Ravi, thank you so much for joining us today. That was a great presentation. So hopefully you all learned something. I know I got a few takeaways of my own. So definitely appreciate you joining us today. Again, it is May 21st, and we will see you all in a couple of weeks. Don't forget to join the new LinkedIn group, and we will see you there. All right, guys. Y'all have a great day. Thanks so much.
Thanks so much, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Richard.
Bye.
Thank you, Garrett. Take it easy.
You too.